This new law could cost your business up to $500 per day in penalties, up to $10,000 in additional fines, and can land you in jail for up to 2 years. We need to talk about the BOI reporting requirements, which is due on January 1st for most entities and will catch millions of people by surprise who are not compliant. So as a licensed CPA that works with small business owners every day at mycpacoach.com, I am going to show you how to comply with this new law in just a few minutes. I am not just going to tell you what is required, but I am literally going to walk you through how to file this report for free so that you can avoid these penalties and get back to running your business. Okay, so BOI stands for Beneficial Ownership Information. And basically, the federal government wants every LLC and corporation to file an annual report that discloses information about your company and its owners. Now, it is important to understand that this is a legal requirement, not a tax requirement. It has nothing to do with the IRS or your tax returns. This requirement is mandated by FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Now, as the name implies, this government agency is more so concerned about preventing financial crimes, like money laundering, for example, and even tax evasion. And the reason why is because people who usually commit these types of crimes often use complex entity and ownership structures that make it very difficult to determine who owns those entities and, more importantly, where they can be found. So to prevent all of this, the government is now requiring the owner of every LLC and corporation to file this BOI report to obtain the most updated information on the owners of every entity in the United States, like LLCs and corporations. So let's break this all the way down, and then I will walk you through an example of how you can file this report in a few simple steps. All right, so first of all, who is required to file this report and who is not? So like I said earlier, LLCs and corporations must file an annual BOI report. So basically, if you registered with your state to form your business, you are likely required to file this form. Now, if you operate as an unincorporated business, such as a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, you do not need to file this form. But in addition to that, you are also not required to file this form if you are considered exempt. Now, typically when we hear exempt, we think about tax exempt entities like nonprofits, for example. And nonprofit organizations are exempt, but there are also 23 other types of exemptions for this report, which range from banks, public accounting firms, to inactive entities. Now, we need to talk about inactive entities for a second here, because I know a lot of people who are walking around with LLCs or corporations that they don't use, earn income in, and so on. And we need to address this. So if that's you, in order for your entity to be considered inactive under this law, you must meet all of the 6 following criteria. Number 1, the entity must have been in existence before January 1st of 2020. If not, you are required to file this report. Number 2, the entity cannot be engaged in active business. Number 3, the entity is not owned by a foreign person. Number 4, the entity has not experienced a change in ownership in the last 12 months. Number 5, the entity has not sent or received funds greater than $1,000. And number 6, the entity does not hold any assets. So if your entity does not meet all 6 of these requirements, you must file this report for your entity. And most people will have to file this based on these rules. There are over 40 million registered entities that will have to file this. So assuming that's you, let's keep moving on here. Now, the second big thing is which owners in those entities must be included on that report. So basically, anyone who owns at least 25% of the entity must be reported, or any owner that exercises substantial control over the company. So even if you own less than 25% in the entity, If it is deemed that you control it, you may be required to be reported. Substantial control exists if any of the four following criteria are met. Number one, you are a senior officer in the company, like a CEO, for example. Number two, you have the authority to appoint or remove senior officers. Number three, you make important decisions regarding the entity. And number four, this is like a catch-all, you have any other substantial control in the company. So if you meet any one of these requirements, your information must be reported in the BOI report. Now let's walk through how you can complete and file your BOI report in just a few short minutes here. All right, so there are two ways you can go about filing your BOI form. You can either A, pay a service to file this for you, or B, file this yourself for free at fincin.gov. And to help you with that, I am going to walk you through the free steps in this video, but I'll also link a recommended vendor in the description below if you want to hand this off to someone and pay them to do it for you. All right, so to file this for free, just go to fincin.gov and click File Your Report Now. Then you can just follow the prompts to file this report right on their website. And they give you two options to do this. You can either download a PDF copy of the report, fill it out, and simply upload it back onto their website, or you can just file the report right there on their website through their e-filing tool. So what I'm going to do now is download a PDF copy of the report and walk you through some key areas here to help you fill it out. So make sure you save this video if you're coming back to it. So once you open this form, the first thing you will need to do is check the type of filing this is. If this is your first BOI report, then just select Initial Report. Or if you need to correct or update a prior report made, then you would just check the appropriate box here. Now, next, you can opt in to receive a unique FinCEN ID for the company. Now, this may be useful to check the status of your BOI report and can even save you time when it comes to completing future BOI reports. Anyway, from there, you will just need to provide very basic information about your entity, such as the entity's legal name, any DBAs you use for the entity, the tax identification number, such as the EIN, for example, the country and state the entity was formed in, and the address that you use for the business entity. So that's part one of the report, and as you can see, it is very simple. And part two of the report is just where you would put the company applicant's information, which is simply the person who is completing the form. So if that's you, you will need to add your full name, date of birth, and your address. And you must also attach an identifying document like a passport or driver's license, for example, and include that when you file this report. And that's basically part two. Then part three, the last part, is basically the same thing as part two, except you have to complete this for each beneficial owner in the company. Now, again, if any of the owners have already filed a BOI report before, even if it's with another entity, then all you would need to do is grab that owner's FinCEN ID. The instructions specifically state that you can skip certain lines for them by simply inserting their FinCEN ID in the application, which will only help you save time going forward. And that's really it as far as completing the form. From there, you can upload it and submit it directly on FinCEN's website. Now let's talk about the deadlines to file this report without incurring any additional penalties or fines. So there's three buckets of deadlines that you have to adhere to. The first bucket is for entities created before January 1st of 2024, which will be a large majority of people watching this video. If your entity existed before this date, then you must file your initial BOI report by January 1st of 2025 to avoid additional penalties or fines. Now, the second bucket is for entities created after January 1st of 2024. So any new entity that you created in 2024 would apply here. If your entity was registered after this date, then it must file its initial BOI report within 90 days of receiving notice that their entity's registration is effective. So you have 90 days from the date you formed your LLC in 2024 to file its initial BOI report. And the final bucket is for entities registered in 2025 and beyond. Those entities will only have 30 days to file their initial report after receiving their notice. So whether you have an existing LLC, new LLC, or plans to create an LLC in the future, make sure you take note of these BOI requirements to avoid potential penalties and headaches in the future. So drop a comment and let me know what you think about this and any questions you may have. I will also include a link to the official instructions for this form in the description below. Also, if you just want to use a service to do this for you, I would include an option for that in the description as well. Ultimately, that's what you need to know for BOI reports. For more guidance to less stress and lower taxes, make sure you subscribe, and thank you for watching this episode.